All right.
Question.
The question you've all been waiting for an answer for
Yeah.
since either
Tuesday or Thursday.
three days ago or 5 days ago.
Or 5 minutes ago when you were just listening to this prior.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Careful on those legs.
Lightning Gary. Okay, so Dwight, the question. And are you asking Max or me or
I'm
everybody?
asking both of you,
Okay.
and because you're coming at it from a whole different perspective,
Yeah, very true.
experientially. Going back, I want to make a statement concerning your last one, and so
I'm in
just to
trouble.
finish off this part where in the Christian life we walk by faith and not by sight,
Yeah.
and so we walk by what we believe. And it's not necessarily what we can see, whether it's the relics or whether,
Yeah.
and a lot of people say, well, if Jesus would just show himself to me.
But we can see. We can hear.
We're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
That's what we're
Yes.
going to go into
Okay.
this time.
I'm
okay?
excited.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
the other part
He's
is,
excited.
yeah,
I'm excited.
the other part of this is that we have a genuine experience with God as we're walking through, but the walking with God isn't simply about the experience, because then we go through all of the highs and lows,
Yeah.
and our relationship with God is measured by if we're on a high or we're on a low, and so anyway, just I wanted to say that because
Very true.
I've gone through some real lows in my life, and I thought, well, God isn't there. God wasn't there. God wasn't there for me, and I didn't sense Him in that. But He was still there, even though the experience that I was experiencing was a low.
Yeah.
So now, who is God to you, and how have you grown in that experience of knowing God, and who, if I could go back to before that, who did you see God to be, or what did you think Him to be?
Right. Yeah, I guess I can kick it off. Feel free to interrupt and
Will do.
tell me my story's stupid.
I'll tell you what to do and where to go about it.
Thank you. I'll be sure to take that into consideration with management. There's a footprint. There's 2 footprints on that backdrop.
Yeah,
Just noticed.
I was walking on the walls earlier.
You ain't no Jesus.
No.
So to begin, I didn't know what God was. I didn't know where God was.
So, just a minute. Can I ask the question? Because you said I didn't know what God was.
I'm going
what,
way
what
back.
or who? I'm talking about what or who, and I want you to define that for me, because how you saw that, like as a person, or if he was a what?
Yeah. So actually, I started writing this out.
Okay.
This is from like the beginning. So I would have to say what at the beginning.
Yep.
I didn't
That's
know
fair.
what God was at
Yep.
the beginning. I was a kid, I'm going to have to say grade 5 or 6. A small community I lived in. We had a church, floor hockey every weekend. The pastor put it on. And I had a good friend that went to church there. He always seemed happy. Never seemed like anything really bothered him. Wasn't the coolest kid in school. Wasn't, the worst kid in school, right? Bit nerdy, but, these days, so am I. Not a big deal. But, I was always curious. I was like, well, why does he get to go? I want to go. So when I look back now, I think there was a whisper at that time, right? So I asked my mom, because my family, we weren't churchgoers.
Yeah.
They weren't. So I said, can you drop me off there on Sunday? So sure enough, drop me off. Did Sunday school. Sunday school was a little bit, it's like I needed more than coloring books. I there was answers I had even at that age.
Right.
So I wanted to sit out and be a part of that. And I did. And, you know, it wasn't, maybe there was a question I was asking that it was a little bit more difficult to answer. Didn't realize I could ask the questions. I do now at this age that asking questions is okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I was intimidated that, you know, I'm a kid and who's going to answer my question, right? So I guess fast forward now to spending time in the deer woods with hunters from the U.S. coming up. And, you know, it's, they're a couple of them. Well, one of them's a pastor. One of them's a devout follower. Hit the lowest of lows. That's where Jesus walked into his life. Listen to their story, watch them cry, tell their story. You know, these grown men, past grown men. And it was kind of, you know, I started hearing that voice again, right? I've never not believed, but I've never had enough information to disbelieve.
To know what to believe.
Yes. And there's what again, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, the voice kind of got louder there. And when I heard those stories, those, I guess, testimonies, that's when it was like a who, right? That would be at the point where it's a who.
Right.
Like, who is God?
Because
Who
like
is
somebody's listened in their life.
Yeah.
Made a change. Yeah.
So who is God? You know, we start asking questions now because God is three people, right? So
Three persons.
three persons.
Yeah. One people, because Jesus became human being.
Right.
But three persons, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. But yeah,
Right.
Continue.
So this starts to turn into a who at the time. I hit a spot where, you know, we're middle of the pandemic. Can't see our friends. Not allowed. You know, you have friends that'll tell on each other for seeing friends. I end up getting sick and I need my appendix out, like, now. So nobody can visit you in the hospital. Nobody can come up, give you anything. Nobody, nothing. You spend time by yourself. You're in the hospital. And I mean, I wasn't an old guy, but I wasn't a young guy.
It's before my time.
Right. Just before. So I'm healing and I'm alone. Can't see family. Right. Because I didn't live with family, so they're not part of my group. At the time, the world was crazy. It was lonely. It was dark. That was my low point. And I turned on the TV and it was the Summit Church.
Yeah.
And it was like on YouTube, and YouTube doesn't just turn on and play, you know.
Yeah.
And so Pastor JD starts talking, and it's like, well, I mean, it's Easter. It was an Easter service. So who are we talking about? It's not God. It's Jesus.
Who is God?
Exactly. So God is that whisper. God is that whisper. God is that grace. God is that noise when it's quiet. God's that quiet when there's noise.
Yeah.
And God is a relic. God is a friend that shows up out of nowhere. You know.
Yeah, so let me just stop you for a second and ask a question. You're talking about who is God to you now versus who you or what you thought God was or saw God to be. Okay.
Yeah. So now to start, God was a what? Then it was a whisper. Then he was a person. He was a people. So yeah, after that, I sent a message to that church. They emailed back. I said, I'm ready to surrender. Like, sign me up. What's up? What are we doing? So they phoned. We went through it, and it was something. That was when I really it all kind of clicked, and I would say it was a month or two later. Video games, online gaming. Our mutual friend Nick kind of says, "Oh, this is my buddy Max," and so just when I, surrender, there's someone to walk alongside with me
Yeah.
the rest of the way. So
But I didn't know because I just was like, "Oh, it's Nick's buddy Kelsey
yeah,
streaming." I'm like, "Good, I'll be your number one fan. I'll watch. I
Right.
can't game."
right. So
That's how it happened.
and that's where it evolves. God, he meets you where you're at, right? So I was at a point when I was a kid.
Yeah.
It was a what? What's God? What is God? To like I said, a friend that you didn't know you needed to help guide you through this journey that is you don't know anything about, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's kind of where it's at now.
And that was about the time then that you started with Max's men's life group that was in Claremont.
I was about a year after.
Okay.
I would say.
It's
Yeah.
about a year because like we probably got to know each other for probably I don't know how many months. Then we're like, hey, we should go for lunch, and I remember doing that specifically about photo stuff because we had a mutual love for cameras, if you will, and then we
Did we go for lunch?
We did. We went to Jeffrey's.
Right, and then we went ice fishing.
And then we went ice fishing.
And he
I was
didn't have a
going
beard.
I didn't have. That was the day you're like, just grow it out.
And
Since then,
and then he grew it out.
and then I grew it
Yeah.
out. And then my wife's like, you can't shave it now.
No,
No way.
no,
That's where the beard came from. That's the story.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So Max, with you,
that's God. His
Yeah.
beard.
Jesus probably had one.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's like, yeah.
Yeah. So Max, who did you see God to be, or what did you see God to be?
Yeah.
And when did that really change? And who do you see him to be now? And where is he? And as you're saying, where is he in that journey? Because you talked about him being your friend. He's, and so he's in that journey with you.
I ate up all the time, so you got 7 minutes. Sorry.
7's the perfect number.
That's-
All right.
There you go.
So, honestly, there's a lot of gray. My memory sucks. My wife remembers things from when she was like 1, and I'm like, man, I can't remember last week. So anyway, going back probably when I was 6, 7, 8, I don't know. That's my first memory of going to church. So pre-kindergarten would have been probably 5 or 6. I met my one friend Troy. We went to church together. We went to the same church. Went to school together. Kindergarten to grade 12. We kind of always had each other through that. It was, we haven't been able to connect a lot recently just because of distance. But so back then it was like we go to church, we follow God, we go to Sunday school. At that point there was no relationship. It was like, this is who it is. This is what it looks like. This is what you're supposed to do. Essentially, it was like that till I can't even remember, but older, like probably junior high school. Another mentor in my life. That was kind of a period where there's an organization called Young Life, and they were in town. He was starting that here in Grand Prairie. Me and my cousin and I can't remember if it was one other person, where we were the first kids part of this group, and they have a camp down in southern BC. But it's basically a youth group, but less youth. It's not tied to a church. So he was one of my first major mentors in my life to just walk alongside of me and essentially, um, show me who Jesus is in a real life manner. He's the only person I had that connection with where I could just talk to with zero opinions or judgment, and he just showed that. He did that for me, but he did that for like everybody in our high school and beyond. If you talk to any like so many people, it was like he made such an impact. So he lived and showed that. For me, because I didn't really know, it was always an awkward conversation growing up, talking about God, Jesus, praying, Bible study with family. It was always awkward, and I've talked to other people kind of that grew up in a similar fashion that feel the same way. I don't really know why that is, but it just was
The rule book, the structure.
something. But it's like it was almost like we should be talking about God, we should be learning more, we should be doing these things, but I don't know. It's that didn't really break for me until 6-7 years ago, roughly, and then that started to shift, and it changed really quickly. But through that, it was just always an awkward. It's like I want to, and I feel like I need to, and I want to get to know this better, but I feel like I can't, or I'm. How do I do this? But no one ever really kind of walked. Pete showed me that, walking alongside of me. He was the reason I played football. All of these things. And it was like, I know it's right. I know God exists. I know Jesus is there. I know why he died for me. But it was kind of like it stopped there, and that was it. So like I always knew. I never really questioned it. It's not.
It was almost like having a job, and it's like we do things this way because that's the way they're done.
Yes.
Right.
Definitely. And it wasn't like it wasn't a bad thing, because I didn't experience a lot of bad parts of that some other people that I know very, very well.
Would you say you were like the good little Christian boy then, sort of thing?
That's what everybody called me.
Yeah.
So who has God turned out to be? You know, I know our clock's running here. So
yeah. So he has become, I would say, thinking about it, because it's kind of just clicked for me a little bit more now with Pete. That person is just walking beside me. He's really just become somebody that I can lean on, be close to, put my trust in, especially when I'm going through the hard times, that I want to lead my life through all of it, not just the good times and the bad times, but somebody that can just, I know that if I'm struggling for direction or struggling through something, I'm like, I know that he's got it figured out. He knows what he's got planned for me, even though I can't. Another friend put it this way, and it's stuck in my mind. It's like we can never really see what God has for us around the corner, but he knows.
Yeah.
He knows.
He's linear.
Yeah, but I can't see that, but I know that I can trust him in that. So he's become that person that is, it's firm, and
Yeah.
I know I can trust to guide me through that. And when I'm unsure, diving into his word always helps me with that. The comfort, I think the comfort, one of the verses, the ever-present comfort in time of need, like that settles me in the heat of the Rolodex, if you will, when it's so thick.
The
and
Rolodex,
blurry.
we talked about it off the air, but
Was it?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
I had
Right.
said
Anyway.
said that my mind was so busy, it was like I had put one too many cards in a Rolodex, and it just exploded everywhere.
Yeah. So like it settles, and then it clears my mind, or he clears my mind, if you will. And
He's a noise when you need quiet, and he's quiet when you need noise.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Just that, I don't know. I honestly have a hard time putting it into words, but
What I feel like out of both of our stories here is that it wasn't any kind of religious rule book we had been following. It wasn't like an opposite Ouija board of some kind where we were like we were knocking on God's door. He came to us and met us where we were at, right?
And he was seeking you from when you were the voice, or he was drawing me to this.
It goes
point.
back to Genesis 3 then.
Yeah.
When Adam and Eve were in the garden and they were hiding from God.
Yeah.
He comes seeking them. And Jesus said, and it was said of Jesus, Son of Man came to seek and to save that which was lost. And he came seeking you.
Yeah.
I think it's super interesting that, like I said, it wasn't anything we were following. It wasn't, he came to us because of, right? It was,
yeah. Grace met you.
Yeah. He's gonna come to us and meet us where we're at. And when he believes we're ready, right? So as a kid, did I need it full throttle right then? I don't know. It's not for me to know, in my opinion.
I love in Chronicles of Narnia, if you're watching the movies, and one of the children comes to Aslan and wants to make a comment about the other person's life. And Aslan says, you know what? That's their story.
Yeah.
And I love that because that's your story. That's your story.
Exactly. Yeah.
And truth be told, it's a wonderful, powerful story.
Truth be told, guys,
Amen.
stay tuned. Next time we're going to talk more about being still. I think we got a couple minutes here. We've talked about the Rolodex. Max mentioned the Rolodex. Everybody's mind gets busy, whether no matter where you're at in life.
You know what stills my mind? Middle of the night, my mind is going 400 directions. And Psalm 23. Yeah, the Lord is my shepherd. And I just stop and I just start dwelling on that psalm. And I memorized it years ago. And it's a verse, Leanne Crawford, I think it is, has a song, By the Still Waters. Abby and Sherry have sung it. Abby's sung it. It's a powerful, powerful song. But it talks about by the still waters. And so,
Yeah. And we run into that. Our minds get busy. It doesn't matter if you're a pastor or if you're a business owner or you're a videographer or photographer. It doesn't matter.
Or if you're a lightning guy.
Yeah.
The lightning guy.
That lightning guy. It
Full
doesn't
of
matter. Our minds get busy.
Yeah.
And if we stop and take a minute, we can.
And I think
we can Joshua 1:9.
Yeah, and make that a habit. I struggle with that. I listen. But that is, I feel like I know nothing still. I'm like, when we're asking questions, sometimes I'm like, man, it's just black. I'm like, I have nothing. And then all of a sudden, something pops into my mind that I've just read or have read months ago in the scriptures. But the time is when you, I find for myself, when I read more consistently.
Yeah. Or listen when you drive.
Well, exactly.
When you've got a minute.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It starts to. Well, that's when Jesus became more real to me. Honestly, until then.
There it was.
Yeah, he was there, but.
Till then, truth be told. Next time, being still.